Next, we have Christina, and she's going to talk about a new feature that she built.
Yep, I'm Christina, and I have screen shared. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, see. So I'm going to be talking about a new feature, and some of you may have already heard about it. It's soon going to be released in our development branch, and then that means it's on the horizon for a new feature coming soon. This feature is called AppSync, and the usage of this is to keep your data model and app model synchronized. It's very useful and definitely prevents you from writing some extra logic to handle the data passing between the app and the model. And I'll demonstrate an example of where this would be useful. For example, you have a parent page and a button that opens a card modal. As we know, the app model is global, so the app model will be accessible between the parent page and the card modal page, but the model of the card modal page and the parent page are two separate. So let's say you wanted to take the model in the parent page and put it into the model of the card modal page. You'd have to write an extra 2 lines of JavaScript to pass the data around. And I will show you what I mean by that, and I'll also show you how AppSync helps prevent that. And okay, yeah, so this one, I have 2 separate modal pages. One of the pages I'll demonstrate for the app syncing, and the other modal page is without the sync. So let me go back into my parent page, and that is over here. My HTML that I'm opening up just has like the heading, and it's got a wrapper here, and I've got my inputs. For my model, it's looking for model.contact.name first, and similarly for the other 3, model.contact.name last, and .email.city. And I've got my 2 buttons. Both of these buttons open up the separate modal pages that I have, and I have a default data model set on this parent page and in my modal pages. So on my parent page, I do have like empty strings for all of these, but in my modal page, I just did an empty object for contact. And as well, inside of settings and the app model, I have a default of contact here because this is a key I want synced. So I've added it in my app too, because that's where I'm gonna get it synced to. And so the current way that we're doing right now is opening up a card modal, you add in a function key, and you take whatever is in model.contact and you put it into app.contact. And then on your modal page, on the form load, you'll have a function key and take whatever was put in app into your model. So now the inputs in the HTML that are referencing model have the data. And I will just show you what I mean. So this is the model and this is the app. Right now, as I'm typing, the model is being filled out. And as I open the modal, it's going to put everything into app. And then when the card modal is loading, then whatever's an app will go into model. So all of that happened, and that is how I filled up my card modal. Now with AppSync, I will refresh to clear all of this. With AppSync, I'm opening up a card modal again, but in here I don't have any function to pass any data. And as well in my on form load here, it's empty. There's no need for data being passed. But what I'm going to do is go into my data model tab and check this off. I'm going to rename this to sync with app. That's just a to-do item. I'll hit save and I will refresh. Okay, I'm gonna hit save on this.
That collaboration will solve that. That's one of the reasons why we added that when you have multiple tabs open.
And in my parent page, I'm also going to turn this on. And back here, as you can see, these are blank. And as soon as I start typing, the app and the model are synced. So it's immediate. And now when I open up my modal page, it's already there. And as well as I'm filling out the modal page, it's going back into the main page. So another example of where this would be useful would be, let's say you've got some sort of 3-page form where on page 1, your user is filling out their contact information. Page 2, you've got a questionnaire for them. And on page 3, you want them to like review and confirm that everything they filled out was correct and like what you wanted from them. And in order to do that with AppSync, you would just turn on the checkboxes on all 3 pages, and then on your 3rd page, you just reference the model. So it definitely simplifies a lot of code, and that's a new feature coming up.
There's probably a lot to ingest here, but for everybody who's ever had to pass data back and forth, it became a checkbox now. That's the summary. It was much more challenging to do. And this also, Christina, this has coded this in our base code, and it also solves another problem where it's not really a problem, but it gives us another benefit. And the benefit is that we can now push data into the front end that is data that's not in the context of the page you're on. So if you're on invoices and you want to update a contact, the database can push that contact in, and you have that data available in the front end now. So it helps keep the app a lot more in sync with the server as well. So we're going to be coming out with more techniques, and this will be sort of a common technique going forward. Yeah. Christina, this is in which branch? Is this
This is going to be put into our development branch. So it's not available too soon.
But there is some parts I think available now, because I believe I'm using this in one of my apps. So I think it's in staging as well. Maybe?
I didn't push it to staging.
Okay.
Yeah, so this would be helpful for like the on form requests too. It would still be synced and with utility hooks. So it would be useful for multiple pages. You can have like the modal window, you can have another modal window too. It can sync on any level. So that's what's cool about this one.
Awesome.
Chris had a comment there if you wanted to read that out.
What if the user selects cancel in the model? How do things revert if the parent page is synced? Okay, if the user selects cancel in the modals model, and you're asking how do things revert if the parent page is synced, it definitely won't revert. That's
probably just use a different key then, right? I guess.
Yeah, you'd probably just have to keep the same workflow of passing data between, since you want it separate on the modal page.
You could potentially use what I set 2 keys. So I have a selected treatment and then a selected treatment on open, and then the on open doesn't change. And then if the user clicks cancel, that means that, first of all, if they've not made any changes, nothing happens. But if they've made changes, it notifies them and says, you've made changes, are you sure you want to cancel? So you could do the same thing there. If you click cancel, it just sets the app key back to you're on open, and that would then revert all your changes.
Yep. Make a copy of it. We do that in the, I think the component page does as well. Some of the other pages in the editor does that too. It takes a snapshot of the original data. Then you have the change data. And then if you go to navigate away or something like that, you just do a quick comparison. Are they the same? And if they're not the same, you alert the user. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Christina. All right. Next we have Mr. Neil and an update on this iClinician app, which is always a hit.
Oh, yeah, it's only taken a year. Right. Okay. Where are we?
Well, as you know,
everyone,
software will never finish. So
no, I know, but at least finish to the point of getting people to use it would be nice. Which I'm almost at. So is everyone seeing that? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So just a sort of a quick update on sort of where I've been and why. So I've got a FM vertical market solution that runs on currently sort of 3 servers. I first found Betterforms during the first COVID lockdown because I wanted to try and add in an online booking functionality to it. I hadn't thought beyond that, to be honest. Within the first sort of call with Charles, after about 2 hours, we'd actually built the thing, and it kind of looks something similar to this. So fairly simple, one-page app that just allowed customers of my, or clients of my customers, to book an appointment, and that got added into the calendar in their FileMaker iClinician, and sort of notified them that booking had been made. This time last year, I think it might have either been the October or the November Friday Live, Jesse Roberts demoed Unbound 360, and basically said everything's done in Betterforms now. So he had a single back-end FileMaker database that serviced all of the schools that used his app, and they all then used the same front end to log in, all built in Betterforms. So that kind of set my wheels in motion of, is it going to be worth me doing the same thing? Because one of the big issues I have is whenever I try to add a new feature, or particularly when people reported back bugs, because as we all know, software's always, never perfect, is trying to update to 2 to 3 servers worth of FileMaker solutions, even using Otto, which is what I use for updating, takes quite a long time. It's quite a laborious process. Whereas with Betterforms, it's one FileMaker database to update, one deployment, and all the changes have been made. So sort of December last year, I decided, right, I was gonna make this change and sort of redevelop my whole app into a Betterforms front end. I spent the first 3 months using the same FileMaker database that I'd already got, thinking, well, that'd be easier. I'll just build a front end to fit it. And in sort of March this year, realized that was, I'd got a lot of CRUD in there. So there were loads of fields. I didn't need any more calculations, summary fields, loads and loads of scripts, and it was all getting a bit complicated. So I kind of started again and went to build a fresh, from scratch FileMaker database, and have then sort of worked all the way through. And I'm at the point now where I've got the first kind of 7 or 8 clinics that are kind of beta testing it. Some are new and some of my existing clients, and then they're kind of feeding back bugs that they find and sort of suggestions and stuff. But the good thing was I'd kind of already got a successful vertical market app with all the features I needed. So it was a kind of a case of building on that and moving that into Betterforms. So the reasons to kind of move over, to make it more scalable, I think I'd reached capacity of a one-man band being able to manage 2 servers. I think much beyond that gets a bit complicated. I wanted everyone to be able to have access on a range of devices without having to have a million different layouts to cover mobile, tablet, desktop. I wanted to be able to look at theming to give clients the ability to make the app fit with their clinic's branding. And then obviously the other big one is the FileMaker licensing, which obviously this is a way of not having to be having that, user license for every single user. So if everyone's seen that. So this is me kind of logged into the dashboard. I'll come back to mention the theming in a minute, and I thought I'd give you a very quick whiz round for like a couple of minutes, and then I thought I'd just pick up on maybe 3 or 4 features that I've been able to do in Better Forms that other people might find useful for their apps as well. So from here, what I wanted to try and do is keep the navigation fairly simple. So down the left, we've got the main areas, the first kind of 5, 6, if you include the reports that the clinics use. Sorry, I should have probably mentioned this if you're not already aware. It's for aesthetic clinics. So Botox fillers, chemical peels, non-surgical stuff, basically. So this gives the clinics access to the main areas that they're going to use on a day-to-day basis, and then everything else then falls under the settings. So if I go into clients as an example, it loads up the 20 most recent records. So similar to what was mentioned earlier about not having to load all of the data. If I scroll down, you'll see I've got 1,800 test clients in this system. Very rarely does someone need to load the whole list, so it just loads the most recent 20 that they've been viewing already, and then we can use the search feature to obviously to narrow that down. That then takes you into the patient record, which shows all of their notes, treatments, appointments, invoicing and stuff, and then I can then click the edit button, and that then opens up in the modal over the top. So this is where I mentioned about this is the only place within a modal that someone can modify data. And then, as I said, if I click cancel, I've not made any changes, it just closes the window. If I make a change and click cancel, that's when it notifies the user you've made some changes. Are you sure you want to exit? Or you can click save, and it'll obviously make those changes. In terms of the kind of the features that might benefit other people, the first is I wanted a really simple search functionality. So I kind of, having discussed with my current clinics, none of them ever used the search functionality that FileMaker provides. They just want to be able to find a client and everything to do with that client. So with the search feature, I made it nice and simple. You type in either name, email, phone number, anything that someone's going to generally want to search on, and then it just displays a list of all of the records that match whatever's been searched for. So it loads up the clients first, and it grabs, as part of that FileMaker script, the number of records. It doesn't load them all straight away, but it grabs the number of records for each of the other parts of the search. It's then just a case of clicking on the name, and it'll then take it to that record. If I want to look at something else, I can then click treatments. It then does another hook and actually grabs the treatments at that point. And again, I can then just click on the record, navigates to that particular treatment. So really simple search functionality.
That's interesting, Neil. That's a really neat way of categorizing your search results in the different areas. Yeah,
and this is then the navigation bar at the top is built using one of the FM features components. So this search tab, along with the menu and the breadcrumbs, is just then at the top of each of my pages, just added in as a component. So I just clicked away from it. There we go. Okay, I mentioned theming. Someone's already mentioned Tailwinds, but 2 of the really amazing things that I found, along with Vue, which is allows you to sort of build as we do, is combining Font Awesome with Tailwind. So if I just go to my settings page, I use any icon that's used throughout the app is all done with Font Awesome. I think it's an annual subscription of about £70, something like that, $70, something like that, and that just gives you such a range of fonts that you can use. The duotone, I think looks pretty cool, and what that allows me to do is if I open up the settings page, you can then choose from a range of colors. So I can, if my clinic is kind of themed green, I can change, click on the green, and then when I hit the save, that then just updates throughout the whole app. I've actually written a blog on the forum on this, so if anyone else is interested in, you know, for a vertical market, particularly adding in theming, there's a fairly comprehensive blog that covers it. But it's basically a case of when you change that theme, it does a couple of things. The first is, let me just jump over to one of the, I think I'm logged into App Staging. Let me just get logged in. Here we go. I'm opening here. So a couple of things. The first is that there we go. So I've got some Tailwind configuration in my DOM header. So I've created a set of variables called theme, and then the color, and then the numbers to match Tailwind. And then when you change the theme, FileMaker runs a script and basically updates those, you know, hex codes. And then that is, so rather than referencing background sky 50 in the CSS, I just reference background theme 50, and then when it changes, that updates. So that's sort of meant that the whole app can then be themed, which, yeah, is pretty cool, I think. Another one just to touch on is I wanted to be able to trigger alerts from within functions without having to always create a named action. And I found a pretty cool library. Again, I think there's a blog post on this, but a fairly cool library called Sweet Alert 2. So if I just switch over to one of my other clinics. So it allows you to do a number of things. The first is fairly simple. If I'm on, well, that's, I think, online booking, for example, it allows you to kind of trigger, similar to a kind of halfway between an alert, like one of the alert snippets that we've already got in Better Forms, and a modal. So it gives that kind of really nice effect, but it then also gives you the functionality to do things like, let me just go to try and delete a record. So I've got a delete protection feature. So if I go in here and try and delete this record, again, it brings up that functionality of being able to put text in. If I put the wrong numbers in, it'll tell me. And you can do all of that within a function, all using JavaScript. That's been fairly handy. As I say, there's a blog on that which covers that in a bit more detail. And then probably a couple of other quick ones just to show, which Charles had quite a lot of help designing, is using SVGs to create tools. So one of the things that my clinics need to be able to do is kind of mark up where people have had injections. So I was trying to find a library that would allow me to do it, and Charles was like, if we could try an SVG with this. So basically you can choose which image you want. So if it's a body treatment, you can change to a body, or if it's a face, a male face, obviously you can change there. And then you've got a number of tools. So for Botox, for example, clients need to be able to, or clinics need to be able to know where they've injected and how many units have been injected. So they can set the number of units in here. They can select the area of the face if they want to. So say they're doing the forehead, and then the injection tool here, the little dot, wherever you then click, it adds basically a mixture of SVG objects, a dot, a line, and a text to sort of show where that is, and then adds it all up down the left-hand side. You can then change the tool to a line tool and put, again, the amount, and then the first location you click, second location, it puts the line again with the total on there. And then a couple of other tools. There's the freehand, which you can do in different thicknesses. change your colors. Again, this all just uses Tailwind, so you can sort of mark up, you know, what you've done on the face. And then the last one was is text, so you can type anything you want, and then wherever you click, then it'll just put that text on. So all of that was just done using Vue to sort of each time someone clicks, it creates an object within an array, and then it just use V4 to loop through and show them all. So there's no external sort of JavaScript libraries or anything in this, but it's just created an awesome tool that the feedback already from the people that are using it is they're like, wow, you know, this is really cool. So that was one. And then the last one, which I'll just mention, is there are so many different treatments that clinics can offer that whilst I've built a lot of consent forms for people to download, there's always another consent form for a new treatment or for something that, you know, is quite unique to a clinic. All clinics want to be able to have their own bespoke consent forms. So I built a consent form builder. So let's go and have a look at one of the ones that's already got stuff in. So if I edit this one, the Botox botulinum toxin, this comes preloaded with 3 questions that are generally asked for Botox. But say a clinic thinks, well, actually, I want a 4th question. Then all they can do is they just come down. You've got all the different types of fields on the right. You can either drag it across, or you can just click and drop it in, and then whatever you type. So that's put a toggle field in. I can put in yes, no's. I've even actually now added in the ability to add in a table. So with the table, we could say, right, so the first column is a date. Second column, let's add another column in, is, you know, like a setting, and that's a number. Okay. And then give clinics the ability to say, well, actually, I want to be able to add in an additional row, so that once the first 3 have been filled in, if I need a 4th one, I can just add in another row. And again, this is all just done with blocks of JSON and V4, VIF, VShow, to build the form. And that then, when imagine this is on the front end now, where they're not the front end, but on the treatment record, when they add in a Botox consent form as part of the form, they'll have these questions here. In fact, let's just finish it off by showing you one of the forms. So if I go into treatments.
So Neil, every clinic can now customize their
100%, yeah. There's a whole library. So if I've got just go back into here. So I've got the library that they can download from. So these are all the ones that have already been built. So there's a ton in there already.
Oh, so these are templates?
Yeah. So I offer LipoFirm. They can click on that. That's been added successfully. Close that window. That's now going to pop up. There we go, LipoFirm. And then they can open that. And that's got all of the risks of the treatment, the benefits. But they've got full access then to be able to say, well, I think there's some other risks, so I want to add that in, or I want to change, you know, what questions are asked. So yeah, that it just gives them so much flexibility to be able to build pretty much anything they want. And then that looks like on the front end. Here we go. So this is a consent form. And there you go. There's those 3 questions that were asked as part of the Botox consent.
So you basically build better forms inside of better forms.
Yeah, we kind of said that before, haven't we? It's but it just gives 100% flexibility for clinics to be able to basically build any type of consent form, and it doesn't even have to have all of the risks and the benefits and stuff on. So if they want to build a single page form, again, if we just create a new one here, they can set it as a single page. So if they go into the settings here and say, well, I want it to be a single page form, so all that's then going to have is whatever questions they build. So that gets rid of all the risks and the benefits. They can still include the signature field if they want, but then they've just got this single, form, so they can, headers, paragraphs, you name it, put spacing in. I've even given it a bit of, I don't know if anyone will probably use it. It's probably one of those things that a developer thinks cool, but no one will ever use. But you change the color of your heading and stuff.
Yeah, but those of us that tried to build forms using FileMaker and scripting and functions and all that, you go like, no, this is just so much better.
Yeah.
So
Neil, this is incredible.
thanks. It's taken a whole year.
Well, you didn't build an MVP here. You built the maximum viable product.
No, I had a little giggle to myself earlier when you mentioned that, Dave, about getting it out to market and then building it. I've totally done the opposite, but so 2023 is definitely a switch of tack to, I've got to obviously migrate all my current customers over, but then actually start selling it. The bit that I don't really like, I just prefer playing around and making cool things.
Yeah, what you can always do is just shut off some features and say, hey, we come up with something.
Yeah, absolutely.
6 months time, so you show movement.
Neil, how do you handle storing the data from the custom forms that they build back in FileMaker so they can?
Yeah, so it's just stored as a massive block of JSON in a field. So that's
I'm sorry, when a user fills it out, not as when the form's actually created. When a user were to fill out a consent form, how do you display that?
So I'm not going to have a back-end FileMaker for people to log in and use.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's probably one of the other big things. I mentioned it at the start. I started off with, have I still got it open? Yeah. So this is my current sort of iClinician database. And I tried to just basically use this and then link that up with Better Forms. I know Charles used this in one of his demonstration presentations in terms of, this is my current relationship graph, which is fairly tidy but quite comprehensive. This is what I've managed to now get it down to in Better Forms. That's it really. The only other elements are the creator tables, the deleter tables, and then I took this a slight step further and created a delete an entire organization table. Use with extreme care. But other than that, that's it. And by starting a game, and you know, it's like when my like the current iClinician, there's so many different naming conventions throughout, and I've just with this starting from scratch, everything has exactly the same naming convention, which makes writing the code a lot easier because you don't have to try and remember what you call the field, and it's just made writing all of the scripts super simple.
Yeah, that's great. One other technical question for you. When you did that search feature and you reported back the numbers from all the different categories, what technique did you end up using to get to those categories? Are you using Execute SQL?
So for that, and I knew someone had asked that, so I'd already got the scripts open. For that, I used, I think I've actually gone and done a search based on the search criteria. So I've got a search field, a search criteria field. So if we look at clients, for example, so I've got like an indexed search field that lists things that I think they're going to search on. So the clinic they go to, the email, first name, last name, and it basically just loops through, goes to each of the layouts, does a quick search on that, and then reports the numbers back. You could potentially, I guess, do that using Execute Data API, because that in the metadata includes found counts and stuff, doesn't it? Which I do use that on the list. So like if on the, where are we? So I'm on like clinic list. So for when I load the list views for each element, I do use an execute data API there, because then it brings back the found count, and it allows me to pull the data out based on the most recently modified. I think that was the main reason I did it. So you can sort it first, and then say bring back the first 20 for me. Most of the time, I use all the custom functions that get column as array. I've created a few more of those. That's like get column 5 fields flexible and stuff, where you can put in not equal to and greater than and stuff. But for the list views, I use the execute data API.
How do you like this style of approach of coding, where I mean, any given system has to have the same complexity, whether it's your old system or your new system. The complexity, for the most part, is within reason. It can only go down to a minimal complexity level. And we've taken the complexity out of the table occurrence graph and out of all the layouts, and you've moved it into, for the most part, into scripts and some basal relationships. How do you find this style of coding in terms of going forward now?
It's so much easier to do. Like once you get your head around not always having to go into a layout, and just being able to go and those custom functions. I can show you, where I was, these are your basic ones, but you can see all of the ones there where I've, get column as array, 2 fields flexible, 3rd field not null, which was a very custom use case, but I just didn't want to start going back to go to layout, enter fine mode. So I just thought, well, I'll just, create some
code,
extra ones on there.
Into code.
But I found it really, really good for working like that. And I think one of the other reasons for working like this is it makes updating records when data comes back in from better forms, and deleting records with the selector and deleter that you guys have created and kindly shared. It makes that just super simple.
And so obviously you're storing a lot of the users, like we'll use that form print. You're just storing that as a JSON block when that the user fills out a form.
Yes and no, not most of the time, to be honest. So for example, like in my patients table, I've still got all of the fields. A lot of the reason behind that is that I've obviously got to migrate all of my current customers over.
Sure.
So I could have maybe created the JSON object and then migrated it in, but I do like the ability to be able to come in here and search myself and find stuff and fix stuff if needed. But for certain things, particularly the 2 last things I showed in terms of the treatment plan face and the consent forms, that's just stored as it's built as JSON. So then there's just a data key, and it sort of stores that in a single field.
Very cool.
Beverly asked, where are those custom functions, and can you share them on Slack or somewhere?
I'll what I'll do is I'll copy them into a demo file and then just share the demo file.
Thanks, Neil.
No problems. All right, there we go.
All right, that was awesome. Thank you, Neil. How are we doing here? Let's see. All right. Let's jump to, we're going to switch the order a little bit here to get everybody on our team. Let's jump to Pearson and Michael, and they're going to present some new features in better forms that are coming out in another month or so.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. And before we get started, I just wanted to give a shout out to the new FM Better Forms merch. I'm not sure if this was mentioned already, but it's actually pretty nice. So I was happy with that. So Michael and I, we've been working on revamping the actions editor, or the actions, or the way we create actions and action scripts. Right now it's just a big block of code, and we wanted to add some UI to that to make it a little easier for us to use and for anybody else to use, make it a little more accessible to anybody who's not a super coding whiz. So I'm gonna share my screen and I'll show you guys what how it's kind of developed and what the design is. and Michael will show you what we have so far. So here we have, these are the screens, and I'm actually going to go through a little interactive prototype that I've built out. So right now, what we have this script or action scripts editor. We want to show global scripts and local scripts. So we have this little switcher here. And when we're in our local action scripts, we select one of these. We'll pick this one. And here, now we have all of our script action or our script steps, you could call them. Each step is now displayed in its own little box. And within each of these steps, you have the full breakdown of what's inside. So here, as an example, we have this custom script 3 with 2 function actions. And here's the one we have selected. So this is what we're looking into. But let's say we want to add another action to this script. You click add action, and we have this big list of all the available actions. But you know, it is a little big, so maybe you want to just search for another function. You type in F, and you have your the 2 actions that start with F here. And if you're not too sure what they do, we want to be able to give you access to some information, so you can just drop down here. You get a little brief summary of what this action does, and clicking read more would direct you to the documentation, so you can get a much clearer or detailed understanding of what this action does. So we're going to go ahead and select this function action and add it in. So now we have this this third action as part of our script, but you know, we don't really want that. We're going to delete it. Are you sure you want to delete this function action? Yes, please. And it's just as easy as that. Now, if we want to add another action script, another full series of steps, we click new script, and we have this new script here. We can change the name. Let's call it Friday Live Script. Here we go. And now, if we decide we don't actually need this script, we can delete that as well. Just with this little modal here, you click delete, and now it's gone. So that's kind of a brief walkthrough of how this will work, or is starting to work, as what Michael's built is pretty close to what we have here, just save for a couple UI changes that I've made. But yeah, we want to make this as easy and accessible to people as possible. We think that it's a pretty simple process, and once it's ready for testing, we'd love to try it out with some of you guys and see what you think. So maybe Michael, if you want to share, and you can show us what we have so far.
Yeah, sure. Pearson's kind of demo actually showed most of it. But regardless, you guys can all see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so just in our kind of main page here, we don't have any action scripts or anything, so we can go ahead and create one. And when you create an action script, it automatically lets you enter a new title for it, because we're kind of assuming that you probably don't want to call it new action script, but regardless, we can just call it test script and save it, and that will automatically update. And then from here, basically, we can go and add a action, which will open up our modal, again, like Pearson kind of showed. So a little note here of what it does, and you can also search for it and then add that. I'll show you the throttle one. So what we've done is we've added kind of like some little notes that kind of show you what's happening inside of the action. They aren't there for all of them right now. However, for throttle, we can see that, for example, leading's true, trailing's false, and the weight's 600, which gives you like a bit of insight into what's actually happening inside of the action. And same thing with function as well. That just kind of shows you like the first line of your code and what's going on there. And let's add another one. So also one of the other benefits of this kind of editor that we have is that you can drag and drop where you want the action to go. So for example, if I actually want the function first, then I can just drag it above and it will automatically go there. And that kind of rearranges how it will actually run when you call it. And then editing the functions is basically the same as you're used to. You just like if you have a function, you can click on it and just edit it from there. But yeah, so that's kind of briefly how it works. There's also some kind of other features. You in this new version, you'll be able to edit global actions from the page, which you weren't able to do previously. So as you can see, we have our on upload, on login, and just like a special action we created. Again, just with some random scripts in there. And then kind of likewise, you can still, oh, it's a little bit broken, but likewise, you can still go and kind of like delete the scripts if you don't need them, and even the actions themselves, which kind of, yeah, shows the progress of it right now.
And I believe this will be pushed out, this version will be pushed out in our editor in about mid-January, roughly in our next deployment. It'll go into staging, into our staging editor. And then from there, once it's vetted out and we get some feedback from our users, then we'll push it out into the main editor. How do you feel about this versus the way we're doing it now? Does this seem any better? Or?
Sorry, do you want me to answer that? Or
oh no, I mean sorry, for
Okay.
everybody else.
Yeah, I think for a page that's got lots and lots of named actions, that really sort of allows you to focus down on it. I mean, the collapsing them up and down can be quite useful, but again, if you've still got quite a long one, particularly if you've got maybe a large amount of JavaScript in a function, you can get a little bit lost with where each step is. So yeah, I think that'd be really helpful.
One of the things we struggled with, and we don't want to opinionate. What makes Better Forms unique is that we don't have too much opinioning on UI and how things work. In other words, you can take every key and make it a calculation, and that's on the UI side, on the page builder side. And with actions, you can add a whole bunch of other things in there if you wanted as well. So it's not limited, very extensible. And as soon as we wrap some things around with some UI, that means there's fixed a number of elements. There's not going to be, otherwise there'd be, maybe 50 elements for a show modal. That could be 50 different options, and it's very intimidating. So we tried to reduce that. We will eventually build some UI for some of the actions that have very limited amount of options, like a function key only takes function and extra options, or a debounce or throttle, like Michael demonstrated there. They have a very fixed number as well. So for those ones, we can add some more fixed UI in time. But I think this will help quite a bit. It reduces the amount of visual data that you see. Okay, I don't know if any questions on that. And I think what we'll do is we'll jump over to, we have a couple things. We've got two more things that we want to sort of feature. So maybe what we'll do is have Eduardo, if you're still online and able to go next, and just talk about some stuff that we've, some interesting things that we built with some functions and QR codes and stuff like that.
Sure, let me just get my second screen up because it does bugger up a little bit. Okay.
And then shortly after that, we'll have our draw for a giveaway as well.
We're trying to share the screen now. Am I sharing the whole screen now?
Yes.
So if I change Windows, it works.
Yep.
So yeah. So I'm gonna get out of this. Well, there's not really much. But yeah, so I'll be showing here a project that I'm not sharing anything directly related with the project, but it was a project for a client that the requirement was to get PDFs and then be able to add QR code street page. And then after that's done, they would save, they would do whatever they would do. They would either they would get this actually a package of documents that would belong to a specific client. And that could be faxed back to them or this kind of thing. So they don't really guarantee how the document would come back. And that's why they would need to have some sort of identification, like unique identification for each page. So if something happens, they know where that page belongs to, like to the correct patient and the correct package and the correct order. So that's why adding the QR code for each page would be important for them. And after that, they wanted to somewhat be able to scan each page and each document automatically. So we did that too. So they can send the document they want to scan and we will return the data accordingly. So what we did is the requirement would be that they would be able to use that from inside their FileMaker application. So that's why we built everything as a Lambda function. So they generate the code by calling this Lambda function and they scan the code by calling a different Lambda function. So I can quickly show here how we do to generate the QR code, for example. So I just have an example URL here that we hit our Lambda function. So let's say I just want to a QR code that would encode happy holidays. I would send that to them. So that's what we would get back. So that's how you can store even in FileMaker if you want, because it's just data, right? So what I'm gonna do here is a quick trick just so I can get an image for the actual QR code. So then what I'm gonna do now is actually just save it, the image, a screenshot quick, and then that disappeared.
Eduardo, did you mention, sorry, I had to step away for a sec. Did you mention why we had some requirements on how we generate the QR code in terms of bits and things like that? Have you mentioned that yet?
Not the bits, but I did mention that it could come as a fax, for example.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to
Yeah, it's just one of the things that we had to sort of pay attention with this project is we wanted the QR code to be as chunky as possible, low resolution as possible, right? So you can set the encoding of a QR code from anywhere between 10 and about 30% error handling, like for bad reads and stuff. And by turning that up and also making the code small, or turning it down, making the code small, we reduce the X by Y resolution as much as possible, meaning that way the code can be as big as possible and therefore accept bigger amounts of errors on low bandwidth or low resolution devices like an old fax or something like that.
Yep. So what I did, just as an example, I just started the file, the PDF file on S3, and then I just got a URL here that I can send to the other Lambda function, and that's gonna return the info. It does take a while because it gets the PDF, it converts to image, and then it needs to scan. Where it's something. Oh, I copied the wrong thing here. And then once it converts to the PDF to image, and then it scans. So it does take a little bit. Just
cutting it close with 1 minute expiry.
Yeah.
So right now it's,
and there you go, and then it returns.
Sorry, right now, so you're basically sending it a URL of a document that's saved in S3.
Yeah.
It's grabbing that document, converting the multiple pages into images, scanning each page for a QR code that's embedded on the page, and then returning you back an array of scans.
Yeah. Yeah, this example, I'm just showing one page, but it could have multiple pages and then would return page 1 and what's the code. And if it doesn't have a code, it would return a different code here and saying that no QR codes were identified on the page. So that's the basic idea. That's something you could do. And then as it's an endpoint, you can call from anywhere, from the FileMaker, or if you want to call from your Better Forms app. It's very flexible. But yeah, that's it for this part here. Not too much to show.
The takeaway here, I think, for everybody else, if you're looking, say, well, how can I use this in my own app? Imagine a system that you send out a bunch of documents to people and they return them through email, they return them through fax, physically hand them in, and you have to scan them or whatever, but you want to automate them, and the pages can potentially get all mixed up. So you can have documents from all different people and they're all mixed up, and you have no idea what goes with what. So to have some quality assurance in your processing or your parsing of the data, you can automate the whole system. So now you can feed this thing in any piece of document. First, there's another part that we didn't really demonstrate, but you can take a PDF and encode every page, dynamically positioning the QR code in some white space. And then send those out to anybody. All the data comes back in. It gets ingested by this inbound part of our workflow, and it spits out every page gets basically collated or identified or parsed with the proper asset that it belongs to, like the contact or whomever. Cool, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about that? I think there's a couple here. Is it possible to do the same creating Apple Wallet Pass? I'm not familiar with the Apple Wallet Pass, so
yeah.
But if it's possible to do it with regular code without jumping through hoops, then it's definitely possible. So I would say yes, in general. All right, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to, we got one more presenter. Is Andrew. He's going to present a couple of apps that he's been working on that look quite nice. So take it away.
Thanks, Charles. I'll start by sharing my screen. The first app I want to present is called GreenRock. GreenRock is a portal that we're building for them, and basically what they need is they need some kind of site for building and facility managers to access their energy consumption. We started this project a couple of weeks ago, so it is very alpha. In fact, all the data you see here isn't live data. It's data I threw in just for testing purposes. But the goal of the app is to make it as kind of performant as possible. So you'll see as I go through the app that things load quite fast. And we're using some new techniques in this app to make fetching data super fast and easy to integrate. I've showed this sidebar off in a previous Friday Live, but if you see on the left here, this is a HTML sidebar that we've slotted in using a form header. If you want to see how that works, you can't see the previous Friday Live, but you can collapse it, you can open it, you can switch between the different properties. This is the detail view, but you can go to something like the projects view. We have some projects here. If you switch to this one, you can see some new projects, etc. In the projects, we have, for example, some comments that if you click on a row, you can see this menu pops up, and you can see the several comments here. Let's add one for fun. Pops in there, pretty simple. We have started very simple backend integrations. So if you notice, if I come here and change the status to something like completed, it does change here, and then the backend updated, and then updated the front end as well. This is using a new technique that I will showcase in a little bit, but we'll move over to the utility page. This page isn't fully built out yet, but the idea behind this page is this will be a graph. And I do have the Figma of this. It will look something like this. We are not totally decided on what kind of charting we want to use. We know there's so many different chart libraries like Apex and others, but for now it is a placeholder. This one also has comments that you can open on the side and scroll through. It has 3 different kinds of graphs, which I just have some colors in for now. Moving on to meter readings. Meter readings is we have the meters on the left here, the type of meter, and then the readings of the meter. There can be multiple readings. And there's a filter on the top here that can kind of choose between. Notice how these are all within a few days. So going back to September, let's go September 28th, and let's go up to September 30th. And it does filter like that, which is pretty cool. And moving on to the users page, this is just a list of users that are associated with that property. Regarding the users, we do have another panel for staff specifically, which will be hidden unless you have that if you're an admin of the property. So over to the manage users, notice how my sidebar on the left did change. This is part of the conditional logic of the sidebar, which is the benefit of using the form header for the sidebar rather than the normal sidebar slot. But you have some users here. You can change their roles, like chief engineer, etc., etc. And then this user, you can also change these ones. You can also add new users. So let's add myself. Pops in there. It's got some save hooks in here. We were doing some testing the other day, so this is some placeholders. But then you have this user and then you can set their roles as well. Except I probably didn't configure it correctly. But that is the gist of GreenRock. It's still in very early developments, but we're pretty happy with how it looks so far. And we're pretty happy with how it performs. Obviously, once we start loading in some backend data, the general navigation of the app shouldn't change too much since everything is kind of preloaded, and then any new data gets fetched in one by one. And I will very briefly show how that works. So in the global scripts, I have a named action called onDataReceived. And essentially, whenever you want to update the front end, you run this named action and you just pass it something in the app in the data key. The data key, I'll show you, looks something like this. All it is it's an array of updates that has an ID and whatever data you want to change. So earlier, I did a change for the status where I changed this to completed. But let's say I change it to contracted, for example. You see how that changed. In my code, I am not changing this directly. The only change I'm doing is by calling this named action. And if you look in the app model, you see how it says the project ID and then it says contracted. So the general gist of what this function does is it takes the array, gets the ID of the object I want to update, and then essentially finds it anywhere in your app model and just does an object assign and updates the object. So this is super handy because now we can update things on the front end just by sending that one object rather than doing a whole form request for the whole properties for all the projects and then loading it on the front end. And with this method, we hope that the app stays super performant and super responsive throughout the whole experience.
Should just a quick mention is this code will eventually, once it's mature enough, we'll eventually put it right in our base code. But quite often, because Betterforms is extensible with your own code, we generally experiment and we write the code without incorporating it right into the base code. And then when we know it's really solid and it has all the features that we need, we add it in. And that's how most of the actions were developed as well. And this will effectively become a new action. So
I will also quickly go over signatures. I have showcased this app in the past, but there have been a few changes to this app, so I'll go through those. Notice how I'm not logged in here, and even if you're not logged in, you are able to see. Oh, actually, I should explain what signatures is first. What signatures is, it's in a portal for artisans to sign up and apply for booths at several different events. They can come in and kind of see what events are available to them. And then if they wanted to apply to an event, they would, let's say they want to apply to this one here and hit apply. But since they're not logged in, I'll ask them to log in first. And I'll put in my very secure password. No spoilers, but it's very, very secure. It'll log you in and let you start applying for an event. These booths are pulled in from FileMaker. and then kind of looped in through a v-for loop. Notice how you can select one, and then by selecting one, it doesn't let you select the other since it's two different choices. So you can select one and then two, select one of these, add some comments, etc., and then hit apply. Before applying, what I want to do is go over to the accounts tab, because this is where kind of the cool things are being done. In the accounts tab, you're able to upload documents associated with the artisan. So if I'm an artisan, I can come here. Let's delete this one, for example. You can come here and browse the files, and let's go through and find a file to upload. So let's take this PDF, for example. It uploads, pops in here. You can preview it by clicking here. Just a simple PDF for testing. You can see the file size, and etc. It only lets you upload one PDF, so that's pretty handy. Here's another one, and then on the next tab, you have kind of a portfolio of products that you want to showcase for the artisan. This is kind of their proof of work, so when they apply, they can either be approved or denied, depending on this portfolio here. This portfolio takes 8 images. I have 7 here, but let's upload an 8th image. Let's upload this pot here. You see it pops in right there. And since I've reached my capacity of images, it won't let me upload anymore. But if I wanted to, let's say, delete this one, now you can upload a new image. And let's upload these cups. And this is this is just a simple v-for loop with a grid system. And then when you hover over it, I have this conditional button show up that lets you delete. The images are uploaded using AWS. And if you want to know more about AWS, we have covered that in a previous Friday Live, going over some techniques. So if that's interesting to you, then definitely take a look at that. But here you have some gallery images, some booths, and these all have very similar workflows, except these only take one image. So I upload my one image, and then it doesn't let me upload anymore. And that is the very, very general gist of signatures. In the events tab, you have your events. You can apply to new ones. Let's apply to this one, for example. And hit submit. And now my application is pending. If I go back to events, that one is now pending. The My Events tab shows you all the events kind of filtered out, just the ones that you have some kind of status for. And yeah, that is the Signatures app. It is currently in development, but we hope to be live with this very soon.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And I think somebody had a question here. Merry Christmas to all. Okay. Giancarlo. All right. I think that almost concludes things. So I'm going to jump over to my screen here quick because we have a draw. Oh my God, it's super windy out now. And we'll have our draw for some giveaway. So basically, I just want to make sure that this thing is working properly, which it should be. Second here. Sure. And
that I'm there and I shouldn't be there.
Pardon me?
Oh, my name is there.
Yeah, it should be everybody who's registered. So we'll
My bad.
if it's any, that's okay. If it's any of the staff or our own team, we'll skip. And if the person's not here, if they don't claim it, then we spin again, right? Snooze you lose kind of thing. And I think we should be good to go. All right, so let's give it a draw. I don't know if that sound works. And Giancarlo. Oh, no, sorry, my mistake. It's Doug. Doug here? I thought I saw him earlier.
Hi.
All right, so Doug is here. Okay, so there you go. We'll get that out to you over the next, I think you already got one actually last time I saw you. But we'll get something out to you over the next little bit there.
Oh, okay, but you know what? I have already got this. If it's something that I've already got.
Pardon me, Doug? Sorry, you're breaking up there.
That I've already got.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Then you why don't you give it to somebody else then?
Okay. All right, round 2.
But thank you very much.
All right. Congratulations. Is Mark here? He was here earlier. I'm not sure if he still is. Let's just see. I can't see all the attendees, so if somebody could let me know if he's here still. I don't see
No,
him.
he's gone.
You might have split. Well,
Yeah, he's for sure
well,
gone.
let me just take this so I can text him and rub it in that he didn't win.
Ah.
All right. And I think Beverly left. All right. It's okay. It's getting down there though. It just increases your odds. Maybe we should do this earlier probably. And is Daniel here? I didn't see him in the group. Don't think so, right? All right.
Nope,
Well,
not here.
all right. So we'll go
You
again.
just type in the like the first few letters of their name in the participant list, and it filters.
Vanessa. I didn't see Vanessa here.
Nope.
All
Just give
right.
it the closest person to Vanessa.
We could do that, but I mean, it's the same difference is the thing, and then somebody's we're
There's
gonna get.
your closest.
The list is going smaller. Statistically, we should have a greater chance of winning, or somebody should come up. Mark Andre?
Nope.
No. Okay. Here, this one's it for sure. You think? What are the chances, huh? Stefan, I think, had to leave. I'm not sure. He was here earlier.
Nope.
We're getting faster here. Aaron, I don't think there's Aaron here anymore. This is.
Maybe you should replace the name with the people already here on the Zoom link.
Yeah,
so they get double.
it'd probably be faster that way.
This is fun.
We're already halfway done. Might as well continue.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
We're committed.
I'm thinking like there's quite a few people in the call still, so the list isn't that big. All right, here we go. All right, Neil, there you are.
Woo!
Okay, awesome. There we go. That wasn't so bad. All right, guys, thank you very much for attending our last Friday Live of the year. We're trying to have them regular. We did stop a little bit, I think, in the summer or the early part of the year, but we'll be returning on a monthly basis with different topics. If you have topics that you'd like to see, please do let us know. I really enjoy seeing our team present. Guys, you did a great job today, so thank you very much for that. And I hope everybody has a great holiday.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks all.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Charles.